Hello, good afternoon. My name is Roli Afinotan, and I'll be taking the course Op-Ed Writing Masterclass. It's a course organized by Chale Institute. So, before um, to effectively go through this class in its basic, this is a basic introduction into Op-Ed writing. I have crafted out a course outline to guide us with this course. And briefly and quickly, it is what an op-ed is, why write an op-ed, finding your voice, qualities of a good writing, practical approach to writing, op-ed, steps in writing an op-ed, wrapping it up, what are you reading, and then submitting an op-ed. So before we delve into this course properly, you should have taken the African Ideas of Liberty course, which explains series of proverbs, oral traditions, folk songs, political and economic history that the African Ideas of Liberty course propagates. And this deepens your understanding of how modern African society should be organized to achieve sustainable development. At the same time, it also explains the indigenous African perspectives to ideologies such as classical liberalism, as well as socialism and communism. So, this op-ed writing masterclass is part of a masterclass series put together for its Advocacy of Liberty program by, of course, Chale Institute. So, yes, what is an op-ed writing? It is a common term and is short for opinion editorial, and it's most times an opinionated written article to a publication or most times to a publication by members of community who do not or who are not employed, who do not belong to a publication. That is, they are not employed by that particular publication, and most times it takes the form of a narrative essay that puts forth the writer's opinion about a particular issue. And most times, opinion editorials are written to raise awareness about a particular topic, and it's also done to persuade others or influence um, popular opinion, yes, about a particular subject, usually by an expert. And also, opinion editorials are commonly published in daily newspapers, and I get that because of the times in which we find ourselves, such that most things are going digital. You may now be digital newspaper publications, blogs, certain websites. So this is not only limited to print publications, and then they're also limited to within 600 to 500, 600, sorry, to 700 words. The minimum should be about 500 and the maximum 700, 800 words. Um, and then this um, op-ed writing most times are submitted by the readers of these said publications. So op-ed can range from public policy debates to first known experiences to first person experiences, sorry, it can range from policy debates to first person experiences. And this is different from an editorial, letters to the editor, and a column. I have broken down the difference or what makes each of this type of writing different from the other. And you can just go through it or pause this video to read up on it because I do not have much time and I have much more to cover with this course. So why write op-ed? Like I said before, op-eds are written to influence thoughts, change perceptions about certain issues, and raise awareness about certain things that people in a particular place or community may be going through. And it can also be written about something that is being neglected, an issue or something that's being neglected, that is not talked about enough. So that, for example, if you hear these days, we're beginning to hear more about feminism, queer culture, different people are writing about it. But um, if you look at this, or if you're to examine the frequency with which we find articles about this compared to 5, 10 years ago, you can um, see and sense that over the years it's become more frequent. But then that is because people started talking about it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, so that now it has now become an idea that has proliferated amongst a lot of people. Although it doesn't mean that everybody shares similar opinion about it, but the first step is to drive awareness about this issue, which op-ed writings and other forms of feature about these issues have done, and so that it has now become a popular idea or popular opinion, a popular issue that many people want to talk about or share their thoughts about. Another reason why we write, or why people write opinion editorials, is that it brings about diversity of voices and opinions about certain topics. So, if not most topics. Yes, so I just talked about feminism and queer culture. And by queer culture, I mean the IGBTQ plus culture. They all come under the umbrella name called queer culture. And yes, in as much as many people are talking about it, like I stated earlier, not everybody, most people have varied opinions about how feminism should be done, or maybe it shouldn't be too feministic. There are wrong opinions held, nonetheless, about feminism, varied opinions, nonetheless. But what opinion editorials that we get to see and learn about these various um, opinions and ideas people have about these issues that used to be not readily talked about or dealt with. So yes, we may have things to talk about, things to write about, or things we really want to share in an opinion editorial, but for most people, it's difficult to write. Some people find it easy, but a lot more people will tell you that, oh, I can really write, but my problem is really just starting. I don't know how to start writing. But here are a few tricks or guides that I have put together that I think can help one find your voice in writing. So for one, you have to write what lights you up. You have to write what you're passionate about. So first of all, I think this is actually really important because you cannot be creating awareness about issues you are not knowledgeable about. And for you to be knowledgeable about something, it means you have to be passionate about that issue or the said subject. And then you also have to pay attention to little things. You do not necessarily always want to re-echo what everyone is saying. So in examining queer culture, for example, pay attention to the little things. So, yes, even though most the conventional opinions about queer culture is that it is wrong, it is religiously, it is a sin, you're going to go to hell. There's no reason why a man should behave like a woman, or a man should dress like a woman, or a man should be attracted to a man, and all of that. You ask yourself, strip something, pay attention to the little things. So, do you think that someone would really want to do something? I mean, a man would really want to dress like a woman just so that he's hated upon? I mean, is it really worth doing that just for the attention? These are things that you need to ask yourself, the little things you need to pay attention to. How might this person be feeling about doing this? Is it easy to come out of the closet to admit that you're abnormal? Abnormal in the sense that you have deviated from the norm, not abnormal in the sense that this person is bad. So those are some of the little things you can pay attention to. And then in writing about something you're knowledgeable about or something you're passionate about, you also have to ask yourself, what has been written about this? Am I coming to re-echo what someone else has written, or I'm about to bring new knowledge, new insights to this topic that everybody's talking about? Also, you can also ask yourself, why am I writing this? Why are you writing an op-ed about this particular issue? So this is another, in my opinion, defining question that should guide your writing, because it will determine, for the most part, how your writing is going to come across on the paper. If you're going to be angry, if you're going to be inciting violence, if you're going to be honest, if you're going to be truly emotional and in touch with other people enough to relate to the points you're going to be putting forward about that set issue. Which again leads me to the last point I have written here. Write your truth. If you're not passionate about queer culture, do not write about queer culture. If you're not passionate about feminism, do not write about feminism. If you're not passionate about the free market, capitalism, property rights, do not do that, because it's actually going to show in your writing, being that it will just be scratching on the surface. And a lot of people, a lot of readers will not be able to connect with the thoughts or the ideas you're trying to put forth about the subject. And then, so before we start talking about op-ed writing specifically, all op-ed writing have to be good writing for a start. So, which is why I have listed here some qualities of a good writing, how you can identify a good writing. And if you go through these points, you will find that these are some of the attributes that you um, readily encounter with some of your favorite writers, wherever they may be all around the world. So for one, you have to be honest. Normally it's good enough. You do not need to delve into the deepest part of your dictionary to come up with words to appear intelligent, to appear knowledgeable. That is not what you should be focusing on. That is not what um, an op-ed writing is supposed to be for. I mean, if you have this vocabulary, if they come naturally to you at the tip of your fingers, of course, why not? You may use them, but you don't have to go out of your way to do that. It's really pretentious, and it's going to make your piece heavy for readers to comprehend, to connect with. And there's only so much time you have. I mean, there are a million and one things competing for people's attention all around, between television, print, the internet, social media. You really don't have time to be trying to impress somebody. You just need to really put your thoughts out there as sharp, precise, and concise as possible. Then you also want to be clear about what you want to say. This is like the most important thing ever. You really want to be clear. You do not want to confuse your readers. You do not want to contradict yourself within your piece. I mean, you cannot take queer culture, for example. You cannot say, oh, um, um, yes, cross dressers. If you're in Nigeria and familiar with the person of Bobrisky, who is a male being who likes to dress like a woman. So you cannot go ahead and say, oh, yes, we shouldn't antagonize and discriminate against um, um, cross dressers. But I mean, then at the end of the day, you come around to say, but it is a sin because the Bible says um, women should dress like men and men should dress like women. But I mean, it's contradicting. Even you need to decide and be sure of where you stand on the divide. You don't want to confuse and contradict yourself. You need to be clear. So, what are you saying? Are you saying that people should discriminate against, or are you saying that it is? I mean, there are ways, even if you hold both thoughts, there are effective ways to put this across such that you are not passing the wrong message across. That is important. So you also need to turn an issue on its head, strip popular opinions to its core, and see what is there. Um, Again, taking what other issue can I use? So taking xenophobia, the recent xenophobic attacks that happened in South Africa against other African nationals. Um, so while everyone is saying xenophobia, which simply means hatred um, for people of other nationals, you have to strip which the bottom line is hatred. You have to strip that to see, okay, yes, this may be largely be xenophobic attack, but what is lying underneath this? Could this be poverty? Could it be because the government is neglecting them? Could it be because there are not enough opportunities for people to thrive in that space, for their locals to thrive in that space? These are some of the questions and ways in which you can strip popular opinions to its core. Then you also want to create a following. I mean, you want to carry your readers along with your writing. So there was this trick, a known trick I don't think you can ever discard of. I think everybody still applies it subconsciously, if not consciously, that we were given in high school, where such that your essay should have an introduction, a body, and the conclusion. I mean, your work, your writing has to flow. It should connect into uh, the next point or the next paragraph you're trying to um, put out in your writing. And then practical approach to writing quickly. There's this tool employed and used by journalists. I will call it, for the sake of this course, I have called it a trick because I think it's an effective guide to how you can practically approach any form of writing, not just op-ed writing or writing for journalism, a feature, a column, or something. Yeah, I think this would really work well for that. It's called a knot graph. Basically, this is the why behind your piece. It still brings me back to certain points I've made previously. Why are you writing this? And this should be made known to your readers within the first few lines of your piece. So I have used a diagram here to further help in explaining this and what a knot graph does. So a knot graph justifies the story by telling your readers why they should care about what you are writing about. It also provides the readers with gists of the story, like, okay, so what is it's like a quick summary about what you're about to write, a quick few lines summary, effective, a punch to hook your readers as to why they should continue reading what you're writing about. And then it also transitions your readers from the opening sentence. The opening sentence or opening line here is called the lead and connects your readers with the rest of the story, similar to the point I raised earlier. And then it tells the reader why the story is timely, why it's important, why we are writing about this now. So the example given here is when Tadpole left the Lawton Library last Tuesday afternoon, he couldn't believe his eyes. My bike was gone, he said. That's the third bike I've had stolen this year. I had a huge honking lock on it too. What a not graph will effectively do is say that Paul isn't alone. Campus bicycle thefts have hit an all-time high this year. On an average, there's been 50 bikes reported stolen annually, but so far this year, that number is 230. I mean, this puts immediate visual visual imagery to the story without weighing it down with excessive detail. I mean, a lot of people do not really have time for over description. Um, Again, create a flow like for your readers, the same point I raised. And then do not hesitate to employ humor and sarcasm in communicating your thoughts. By this, I do not mean that you should be rude or disrespectful or outrightly abusive or aggressive with your words. By employing humor and sarcasm, I mean doing it in the right doses. Um, Someone I used to do this effectively, but he passed on earlier this year is late Professor Pius Adisomi. He's known for satiric writing, and he had several opinion editorials in the newspapers. Premium Times, I think, was one, and yeah, his book "Naija No Dey Carry Last." It's another. It's though it's not an opinion editorial. It's a compilation of how, and a good example of how his writing employed humor and sarcasm in writing about issues that he was most passionate about. Other sources, other facts that could lend credence to your piece, then you want to include that. You want to give real life examples of things that you know about, that you have, in fact, experienced, even though you've not experienced it, know people that may have experienced this firsthand. And then you may want to include it in your piece. I mean, there's nothing that buttresses points as much as fact. So you also want to finish strong, but do not finish abruptly. I mean, you don't want to be talking to your readers and all of a sudden you go to the end. I mean, if somebody is telling you a story and it doesn't look like it's winding down, you'll be, I mean, disappointed at the end of it all and may most likely not get your readers to read the next thing you put out. I mean, this is a trick that is employed in any form of storytelling. Think about movies, think about music, think about, by music, it's not outrightly in the lyrics, it's most likely in the melody and the way the producer just gradually fades till you no longer hear the voice. Yes, that is a way of winding down and finishing strong. However, all the effects and the instruments employed are still retained in the music till it fades out. In the movies, you see when it has reached the climax and then when it slowly comes down in your novels. So in everything, it also applies to writing. So um, there are certain things that makes an op-ed stand out, and it should be that it should be a provocative idea. I mean, an opinion piece falls short if it is not controversial, if it is not about unconventional issues or bringing attention to subjects or issues that have been neglected. And without a forceful point, without a strong point to make, really, an opinion editorial falls short. So you want to put forth blunt opinions, you want to advocate for a cause, you want to express yourself, outrage or surprise really about certain stance or issues that maybe the government, for instance, may have taken that may be against the interest of everyone else, or something that is even in the interest of everyone else, but then have foreseeable consequence down the line. I mean, the opinion is not, it couldn't, it shouldn't always be outrightly about something, um, something notoriously bad per se. So it reminds me of the time when I think when the first subsidy was about to be removed from by the former Nigerian government led by President Goodluck, former President Goodluck Jonathan. A lot of people knew that okay, the points they were making was good. I mean, the first subsidy had to go if they were to if they were to really accomplish or do other things with those funds to serve more of the population better. But then the rest of the population were skeptical because, I mean, from history, we know that the government has not really always done anything or everything in the citizens' best interest. They felt like there are other places you could cut out costs, not, I mean, the first subsidy is one thing you've been doing for us that we can at least, I mean, say every citizen benefits from. So if you withdraw the subsidy, how will other people thrive? And this brought about protest, op-eds, I mean, advocacy, outrage, and all of them. But yes, your opinion editorial should be emotional. So you have to communicate all of these strong points, but then not to do so again aggressively or violent in a way that will incite violence. Some of the greatest um, policy influencers, change makers in Africa, um, from Leopold Senghor, Kwame Nkrumah, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Martin Luther King Jr., and yeah, even Muhammad Ali, who was a boxer, they didn't put forth their thoughts with aggression. They didn't believe with violence. They believed in being forceful, which is different from being aggressive and violent. I just need to put this out there so that the lines are not blurred as to what is believed for about op-ed writing to do. So it brings me to the next point. Op-ed writers tend to be leaders, changing and shaping um, public debates, and that should be one of the goals for you as a writer. Steps in writing op-ed. Um, Start with a sentence. Try summing up your opinion in a single sentence to begin. That is starting strong. Do not fuss too much about objectivity. I mean, you should be objective in the sense that you want to communicate facts, yes, but then you do not have to object to be to objective to the point where you shed your emotions aside. I mean, what makes uh, an opinion editorial great is the fact that your emotions are infused. So most times you may hear people say in an argument, "Oh, you're too emotional," "Oh, you're taking things too seriously." But I mean, isn't that why we're here? We have to be taking things seriously. We have to be really emotional about these things. And I think trying to um, invalidate your emotions is a way to quiet you, um, quiet you down. So it just, and that is not what you want. You want to put your points forth strong and effective. Also, do not be too formal. Write as if you're debating with a friend, as if you're talking to someone across from you on the table, and you want to do this in simple everyday language. Again, leave the ambiguous, pretentious words behind. You do not need them. Again, you do not need them. I say this because this is something a lot of writers, especially new writers, are guilty of. There are ways you can write um, your pieces in simple words without being um, too simplistic, without being too explanatory. You can be effective with simple words without breaking down everything such that it feels like you're writing for a kindergarten. They're two different things. Keep it short and simple, state your opinions clearly and quickly. Like I said, there are a lot of things competing for your attention. You want to keep it between 700 to 800 words max. And you want it to be succinct, you want it to be effective. By the time you begin to tell really long stories, it gets boring, your piece is not tight, and people lose interest in your writing. And then you may want to make a single point. I use the word may because depending on your experience with writing, you may make 2 or 3 points in an opinion editorial effectively with strong punch. But if you're just starting as a new writer, it is suggested that you should make a single point. I mean, you cannot solve all the problems in the world in 750 words. Make the point that make the point that um, you are most what's the word, you're most passionate about, you're most opinionated about. So make your strongest points. You may want to write all your points down, look at the one that's strongest, put that on top, so that your readers know the essence of your piece. This is again like the knot graph, about the knot graph and the things it does for your writing. So this is it here. Put your main points on top. Let your readers know why you're writing this piece, and it gets to the point that convince your readers about the truth or your truth, because the truth is different about your truth and why it is you're writing this. Show rather than tell. Description always works. I mean, there are ways you can effectively describe in a few words instead of just saying it out there. I mean, think of your favorite writers, think of your favorite storytellers. They have a way of painting imageries. Even African proverb does that effectively. Idiomatic expressions, they're short but effective in communicating the imagery, the picture of what you're trying to paint. Dry facts are forgettable. Present facts in an interesting way. Remember the example I gave with the North graph? There was statistics, there was facts, and stating that that bicycle, Mr. Pope's bicycle that was stolen, is the 230th bicycle stolen this year. So yes, you also need to do research. It's not something OPED isn't something you should just do from an ignorant perspective. I use that to say that research on what, even if you're passionate about it, research on what you're writing about so that you're sure you're communicating your best thoughts to your readers. You also want to use short sentences and paragraphs. Don't bore your readers or weigh them down with excessively long paragraphs. I mean, it gets too tedious to assimilate. Avoid jargon, which is again over technical detail, um, ambiguous words, and all of that. Um, Use the active voice. So do not write, it is hoped that, when one can say, I hope that. So when you say, I hope that, it is straight, it is effective, it penetrates the mind of the reader quickly, faster than if you said, it is hoped that. So yes, again, be emotional, get carried away with your drama, significance, injustice, triumph, outrage, but do this right way. And then wrapping it up, again, I said that it is always important to start with an opening paragraph, which is the lead to hook your readers to your piece. And then, but there are ways that one may not always have the time. So that someone isn't reading your piece thoroughly is not it's not necessarily because you are a boring writer. It could also be because the person does not have time. So what someone might do is take a quick look at the introduction, somewhere in the middle, and quickly go to your conclusion to get the gist of the story. So how do you wrap it up? You may want to go back to bringing the point you raised in the beginning. Maybe if you started with a question, um, provide answers to the question as a means of wrapping up your thoughts um, about the piece. Now, what are you reading? So everybody wants to write, but one thing any experienced writer will tell you is that it is so much more important to read. Like, you should read as much as you write. I mean, writing is important, practicing writing is important, but it is only in reading that you can fine tune your skill and your craft as a writer. So you want to read more. And What are your favorite sites to read? I've recommended because some because of the subjects and issues they explore, like the africaliberty.org and chaleinstitute.org. I've recommended these websites for not only the good articles on it, but also because they are focused on libertarian issues in Africa um, and writes passionately, and their focus on of some or most of their editorials is on um, liberty issues. But generally speaking, you have the Guardian, you have the New Yorker, the New York Times, Washington Post. What you need to do when you go online to some of these platforms, just search for opinion. Most times, if you see a tag, opinion, and and then you're sure that it's an opinion editorial. So, if you want to submit an opinion editorial to a publication, remember you're not employed by that publication. Um, there are guidelines. Go to their website or find out writing to the appropriate authorities, which most times will have their contacts somewhere in the newspaper. But thank goodness we are digital now, so you easily find the contact section on the website or find the name of the head editor of the publication who you can trace to their social media, find their email addresses, or reach out to them to get the guidelines on how some publications would like their articles submitted. Be sure to include your name, the title, an affiliation that substantiates your expertise on the issue. It's like pitching yourself. And then put a phone number because you want to be accessible, you want to be reached out to easily in case of an emergency or yeah, if anything comes up, if the editor just may find it, oh, it would be quicker to talk to this person instead of responding by mail. So you do not want lack of information to be the reason why your interest to contribute or to submit an opinion editorial to a publication must come through. So with that, um, you may send questions. We have approached the end of this course. You may send questions about op-ed writing to our Afinotan at chaleinstitute.org. The email address is there. You can quickly write that down. And then your subject should be questions on writing op-eds. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening in. And yes, it's been a pleasure giving this class, and I hope you may have learned a few things here. Thank you, and bye bye.